This session broached high-level policy for CER at the national level, as well as some stuff that I thought was too technical to understand, but obviously stimulated a lot of discussion here. Carolyn Clancy started us off by talking about the extraordinary level of activities and methods in her agency, stressing quite a bit the citizen stakeholder involvement role and always coming back to serving decision makers, maintaining a feedback loop with them as these methods advance. When we talk about limits of RCTs and other clinical trials for CER and the then what question, it's pretty clear that for a lot of these applications, RCTs are, in too many instances, not relevant and they're too difficult. We talked about the difference between trial design, practical versus explanatory, the strengths and weaknesses of those. I heard for one of the first times the problem about control groups are too good. Control groups are too good, making it more difficult even now to do RCTs. Of course, there's still barriers. It was also quite clear that now there's just not one magic method. There's no gold standard method. There's no single type of method that can be used to answer these national CER priority questions. It's a customized set of methods that must be fit to topic. With regard to propensity scoring, selection bias, and decomposition analysis, these methods are certainly ramping up. And some of the national leaders who in this field are actually in our room today, have been speaking to us today. But as Bill Crown often makes the case, we can't lose focus on the quality of the original data. Sometimes the original data is still junk, and these great methods are swell, but they can only go so far with poor quality data. Most intriguing of this, I think, especially, is that if you do have good original data, with these emerging methods, it will be possible, and it is about to be possible, to do virtual clinical trials, rigorous virtual clinical trials with these approaches. That would be a great breakthrough. David Blumenthal, on his discussion of pathway toward data liquidity, he said a bunch of great things. One of them that really captured me was a question about clinical decision support systems. He noted, if you'll recall, that they are the single most important key to unlock electronic data. He said that they're the vehicle into, he said, the consciousness of health providers. So we've got to make that last connection to put all this great data, these CR findings, in that environment of decision-making between doctor and patients and put it in the form of clinical decision support systems. That could be the great breakthrough. When we looked at what are the new data sources linking claims data to outcomes, I did not realize, and Taylor pointed out, that there are nearly a dozen ways to use this stuff, only one of which is to assess a treatment effect on a patient outcome. There are many other ways in which these observational databases, if used properly understood, their limitations understood, can serve other needs that are directly relevant to CER. I was also intrigued by some of the comments from Kaiser Permanente about how they have 8 separate legal entities, but are still finding ways to pool data and findings. So that's a good model for the nation. I think the Veterans Health Administration is doing something quite similar there as well. Good models for this. In looking at HIPAA constraints, privacy, and confidentiality in today's research environment, Marcy Wilder certainly made clear about the key role of high tech and its enhanced informant roles. How far does it go? What has it accomplished? And I think Daniel Barth Jones especially introduced another phrase I hadn't heard before, re-identification attacks. Something else to keep you up at night, re-identification attacks. He also pointed out very nicely that poor de-identification isn't just neutral. It can actually lead to bad results, worse results than if you had not tried it in the first place. If you had never heard of Hippocratic databases, you heard a lot about them today. I would characterize them, Dindu, thank you, as out of the box, but within reach. Out of the box, but in reach. And that's promising. Devin McGraw, as she often does, was very helpful insofar as saying, look, HIPAA and high tech are fine. They're making some improvements, but there are other distinct concerns that we cannot avoid. And one of the concerns that she noted was that about the safe harbor standard. It sounds safe. It's a standard. You're in the harbor. But she said it's static, and static doesn't work anymore. And so she rightfully pointed out that we just can't stay the course in that one. She also, in response in part to what Dindu pointed out, and I think in aligning with that, is the importance of using a distributed model, yet maintaining stewardship. Distributed model, but maintain stewardship in the original sources, and that may be a secure and fruitful way to go with regard to CER. Well, in closing then, I would say that we've all heard about the promise of comparative effectiveness research and quite a bit about its limitations as well as its strengths. But today, even some very technical ways that I'm still trying to understand, we got really at the scientific and technical factors that are actually going to mediate the utility of the new CER methods. All of you have heard about the observational methods and EMRs and linkage of databases. Today you heard a lot about the potential for those and really some of the technical barriers that may get in the way of that and the hurdles that still must be overcome. So you've heard from national experts on what these aspects are. I hope that you'll go back to them with that. Finally, we need to both resolve and capitalize on the issues about which you heard today with a continued feedback loop to the citizens, patients, providers, and other stakeholders. So as methods development evolves, it can't do so in an isolated laboratory or at someone's laptop. We have to keep going back to the people that Devin represents about, well, how do you feel about this? Is it secure enough? Is it not? Daniel, is this subject to re-identification attack or not? You've got to have this feedback loop as the methods envelope expands. And I'm sure that we addressed that very nicely today, and I think in a unique way. Thank you all.